Hello.
Hi, my name is Abimbola.
And I'm Kunle.
And we are the Osunkunles. We've been married for 23 and a half years.
Being married to you for 23 and a half years has been the best thing in my life. And it was your birthday recently, and I wrote you a very long love note.
Yes, you did.
That, I'm still looking for those memories that we're still going to share
Make together.
But I think maybe we should start by asking you, I want to ask you, how has the marriage been for the last 23 and a half years?
No, I think definitely it's been amazing. And when we look at where we're coming from, it's been quite a journey. 23 years ago, when we just got married, and even before we got married, getting to know each other, working together in the same organization, being friends for quite a while, and then finally getting married to each other, dating and then getting married to each other. That's been quite a journey. But I would say one of the things that that formed the foundation for us, which I know has been a major part of why we've had a, should I say, seamless marriage, would be being under Pastor Bimbo Odukoya's tutelage, her fellowship, and maybe you want to talk more about that.
Yeah, for me, I went there consistently. There's quite a number of things we learned there, and knowledge, they say, is power, and so that the pitfalls that other people fell into, when you see them, you can say, oh, I can adjust my life like this. And apart from that, I guess we also had similar backgrounds. We had both parents who modeled a great marriage to both of us. That helped. But irrespective of that, it's also important that we're intentional. We were and we've been intentional in what
I think more you, though. More you.
Okay.
I do agree that we've been intentional, but I think a lot of the intentionality or the you spearheaded the intentionality, especially because of your role at the Singles Fellowship and all the, especially, and your role at the Singles Fellowship and taking over the Singles Fellowship when Pastor Bimbo passed on and learning all those things and coming to practice on me. So that's why I say that the intentionality, a lot of it came from you. Yes, I think it's great that we have similar backgrounds. Both of our parents, have strong marriages. So we didn't have to deal with that baggage. But by the time we entered into our own marriage and had to make our own culture within that marriage, we now had to be intentional on our own, even though we had that great background.
And I remember, and you talked to it, I think just before we got married, there was something that happened that I was in your house. And I told you that, Bimbo, that I wanted to tell you something, that if peradventure, I know you would not do that, but if for any reason you got into an affair, that I would not leave you. And
I start crying. And every time you tell that story, it embarrasses me. And I'm like, oh God, why are we telling this story? Because, but yeah.
Yeah, I said I wouldn't leave her. And I remember that day you were crying. And you were like, you wouldn't really leave me even if I did this. I knew you wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm not planning to.
You said?
I said I'm not planning to.
Yeah. But for me, it's also important that when someone
it was like a commitment.
That you're going into a marriage, you know exactly what you're going into. Because I know quite a number of people, and there's that myth that it's love that grows a marriage and all that. For me,
it's been
come to
commitment.
understand that it's commitment, commitment. And at the end of the day, commitment fuels the marriage. Because when we're committed, there are things over the years, there are things you want to do that I don't want to do.
But I drag you along, and the same,
same on the same way, So
And now to talk about, I would say talking about the challenges, because I know one of the things that's a big deal is navigating challenges. And when we think about the major challenges we've had in our marriage or as a married couple, what would you? We both know what it is, but I mean,
there's something you always say, and the major challenge would be when we had our first.
When we had the mommy, yes.
Our son. He's 22 years old now, and you used to say something that while you were pregnant for him, what was in your mind? That was what?
What to wear for the naming ceremony? Because I didn't. Yes, I prayed for my pregnancy, but it never occurred to me that there could be something wrong, and so I didn't take authority in any way about any negative things, And so when we gave birth to him, and
we prayed.
We prayed, we continued to pray, but.
In fact, I remember one night where I came back home and you came to meet me downstairs in the car, and worship song was playing. I don't know if you remember that. I laid hands for about 5 minutes.
Are you serious? I don't remember.
Yeah, just praying and all that. So we prayed, but go ahead.
Prayed, but sometimes I also think that when you're young, there's certain things you sometimes take for granted.
Correct.
And when we had him, and he came out and, it was diagnosed with...
So, by the way, for all our children, I was there
for the delivery,
delivery of all our children. And I remember that when he came out and I saw what you went through, as he came out, a tear dropped from my eye and all that. So you were going to say that,
so, and he came out and I remember the doctors were a bit frantic.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's happening? And I said, no, I told you, he looks funny.
Yes.
Why does he look like that? But I'd never had a baby before, so maybe that was how all babies looked. And then the pediatrician called you and said, this boy has a rare skin disease, skin disorder, and we're querying ichthyosis. And she had never even seen a case like that. And whisked off to Louth, spent almost a month in the hospital. So for us, that was one major challenge, and I
know. So I think you may have the challenge at the beginning, but I mean, how do you navigate that challenge? And for those people who may not realize how big that challenge was, you have a child. The first 3 weeks was in an incubator. Then you bring him back home. He's markedly different from every child.
It was what you call a collodion baby. So it was wrapped in like a film, a thin film, which started to break and reveal the skin under, which had sores. And this is not on the face, on the head. It was all over. So we basically had a baby that looked totally different from everyone. And for me, I feel that.
And to tell you how rare that was, they say it's 1 in 200,000 babies. And
I think
when we saw the doctor
in Louth,
she said something that she's only seen. This is the third or the second she's seen
in 23 years. Yeah.
So really, nobody really.
So there was no precedent. There was really no precedent. So it was totally different. But I think that one of the things that helped us then was, first of all, we were grateful that he was otherwise healthy, and I will never forget, while we were in the hospital then, left, because we're in the neonatal ward in Louth, and every day a baby would die. On the left of him, babies died. On the right of him, babies died. but we brought him home. So that for me was number one testimony.
Yeah.
The second one was that his mind was sharp. It was otherwise a normal baby, except for the skin. It was just that skin was just very visible. And that is something that I would say how we brought him up, how we loved him, how, we navigated that also determined how our parenting journey, even with the other kids,
Correct.
went. And it also helped even in determining the culture of our home and so many other things. Because having our son, Dumomi, made us, we didn't have any choice. We had to be intentional.
Yeah, and there's something you said. I remember that after about 2 months or so, you had to come back to church.
Okay, so I took time off. I had to take extra time off work. After my maternity leave ended. Then we now had to go to church, and it was my first time in church in 4 months. And people had been expecting, congratulations, you had this baby. And I was carrying him, I covered him, and all that. Because, as I said, he had...
No, you can actually not imagine.
You can't just imagine. You can't imagine, So, if you want to imagine, Google collodion baby and lamella ecdysis.
Yeah.
But the point about it is that I remember that I carried him that day to church, and everyone would look at him and they didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And after service, I had the choice to either run back into the car and hide or do the things I would normally do. And I remember saying to myself, if you run back to the car and hide, you will hide this child all your life. So better carry him and go to all those places you used to go
and
to.
Even the places you didn't
go to. Because so that you will know that this is how my son looks.
Yeah.
If you are going to be my friend, be my friend. This is how my son looks. And that singular decision of showing up, basically, and not hiding, was how we
perspective. And I mean, it was very challenging for us. Why? Because even other people, I know people who would see us and tell us that you guys are wicked parents.
You allowed
fire
to burn him. Yes.
5 months baby and all that. I remember when he had to start going to school, we got a medical note to say that this thing wasn't contagious. And we took him to
a school,
a particular school.
Unnamed school.
A school that shall remain
unnamed in Jerry, Keja.
Yeah, and we took him there, and after about
we were asked to
withdraw him that he's the one causing children to be sick. I was so livid. I was going to write them some legal, but you can imagine, I mean, it was a major challenge. Then he turned, was it 1 or 14 months, and he started developing other issues. He would
scratch his body all throughout the night, so he wouldn't sleep.
And we wouldn't sleep. We only slept
maybe 1 hour. He only slept maybe like an hour throughout the night. And at 3 a.m. we will put him in front of the TV to watch Barney.
It was such a difficult period. But why, for us, it
was also a bonding period.
It was always also a bonding period.
Oh, the bonding period.
You always told me that if I left you alone to do,
I think that for me, that period in our lives, it determined basically the culture of the home. One, as I said earlier.
How close?
But yes, and the fact that we were in this together, and I didn't at any point feel like I was doing this alone. We were in this together, so it made us closer. And when he didn't sleep, I wasn't like alone, and then you were sleeping. I remember the day that I slept off and it dropped from my hand.
From the
bed to the floor. And I started crying.
Yeah.
So and you picked him up and rocked him and told me, go and sleep. And we were just a team, and we've been a team since then, and it continues to be one of our, should I say, our great strengths.
Yeah. at some point, for instance, he would have to soak in water
And
4
would
to
have
5
to
times a day.
yeah.
And you have to kind of
Do a lot of
scrub his body,
skincare, a lot of
skincare,
involved
and all that.
skincare.
So, and it wasn't only one person doing it, because I just thought that if there's only one person doing this, there could be.
I would have resented, because
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with someone recently, and I was saying to the person that, you know what, if Kunle had left me to take care of the mommy alone, that there's no way I won't resent him. So, and sometimes when a child needs extra help, whether it's a health challenge or whatever it is, it's important. Where the two, we made this child together. so how is it my job only as the mom, because it tends to fall on the mom, to take care of this child alone? So it's teamwork, and there is no way you won't. It would take the grace of God for one not to be resentful if one has to handle that alone.
And also in that challenge, one of the things that came out for us is how we brought him up. And people would see us and say, "You guys,
how did you guys do this?
How did you guys
and
do
you
this?"
guys will carry, they'll say, "Oh, you carry your children everywhere. You carry him for a long time." They'll say, "Oh, you carry him everywhere."
And today he's so
confident, well adjusted.
He makes friends. I remember I went to see him in school the other day. His friends threw him a party. I mean, they all love him. He's so wise. He's so, and for us, it's because we work together.
We work together. We were intentional
we were
also.
intentional about bringing him. Yeah, go
we were intentional about bringing him up with a lot of confidence. But I remember that some of the things there was also a lot of reading. Remember, we did a lot of research.
Yeah.
A lot of research, how to help us just to bring him up well. But I remember one of the prayers I prayed then, where I said, "Lord, when people see this boy, they may say, what's wrong with him?" But by the time that they're leaving him, they're saying, "Oh, wow, what a boy." So that was a consistent prayer point, that is what happens now, because when it comes, it's like it's a force. It's just a force. Do you get? And another thing we did during that period was also to say, you know what, you are not special because your skin is different.
Correct. Yeah.
You are special because you are you.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want his whole identity to be tied into the way his skin looked. So it was important that we didn't say, "Oh, you're a special child, oh, because you have this skin." You have this skin condition. We will, work on it. However, you are you, with or without the skin, and that is what makes you special.
And I remember one of the things we also started to do, because of that situation, we started to teach him scriptures that would lift him up. And there was, when he was
like 3 or 4,
4 years old, I remember you took him to his cousin's birthday, and maybe you need to
so I took him to his cousin's birthday, and we were there. We were inside, the adults were inside, the kids were outside. And I just started hearing commotion and all that. Apparently some kids were running away from him. And so I called him. I was very upset, quite upset. And because at this time he still had all over his face. And, so when we got home, his dad now asked him, they said they were running away from me.
I said, "So what did you do?" He said,
"Don't run away from me because I have love, power, and a sound mind."
And so he said, he quoted them, he said a few scriptures. Man, I was just moved to tears that day, that this thing is working. And we've seen that work together now. So irrespective of challenges, I think one of the things that's most important is, how do you do life together? How do you work together as a team and ensure that somebody is not shortchanged,
or doesn't feel shortchanged.
So I think that defined quite a few things
It was a line. It was a line marker.
It
Yeah,
was a line marker. I mean, it was a major line marker for us. And when the other children were coming in, we were able to at least say, "Oh, this is how we raise this child." We became a template, a good template. But man,
each child is different.
Each child is different.
I think one thing we have found on this journey, even though we had that template, is that every child is different.
Oh my goodness.
They all come with their own drama.
Jeez. Sometimes you just wonder, okay, I've gotten this, then
they just show you.
You just show you.
I will go and talk to a stranger.
And you go, yeah. I remember one. Oh,
I have a gentle spirit. I don't have a gentle spirit.
So when our children are growing up, when they start misbehaving, 2, 3, 4 years old, my wife says, "Say I have a gentle spirit." You told our daughter, "Say I have a gentle spirit." So we had our last son, I think we were abroad or something like that, and he was just misbehaving and all that. And my wife says, "Say I have a gentle spirit." Say, "I don't have a gentle spirit. I don't have a gentle spirit." And I say, "I will go and talk to a stranger." I said, what child is this?
So children are so different, and you can't use the exact same template. Yeah, there are principles that remain, but you can't cut and paste.
Yeah.
And you can't compare children.
And for us, in raising our children, it's also important that we're a team, because sometimes we have varying opinions on what to do. Sometimes, but it's important that we're listening. I remember there's a day that our daughter was saying something. I can still see the picture, where we were in the living room, and I was going to cut in like a man usually cutting.
I didn't think it was recent, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, the man would usually cut in to do that. My wife, you just tapped me and said, let's know what she knows. And I thought, oh, that's a lot of wisdom, because I would have just gone in, gave the solution, and that was revealing to both of us that, okay, this is what she knows.
Thinks about this thing.
Thinks about these issues. And I mean, the world is changing. There are various ideas, various issues in the world that now we have to kind of contend with our children in discussing
their
these
mindsets
issues,
and how they
their
think.
mindsets, what they think about,
what their influences are, how they see the world. Because even though yes, you as parents you try. And, we try, and you do the Bible study, you go to church, you talk, you have these conversations, but the world still wants to invade,
Yeah.
So
I mean, and the questions are, very high level questions. I always share this one. One day when one of our children, our daughter says, "Daddy, let me ask you a question. That when God says I should
worship him.
When God says you should worship me, is it because he's proud?" My shoulder all drop like this. So, and anytime things like that happen, Big Bob will just you just say, "Go and ask your daddy." You understand?
I mean, I'm the pastor. I'm not pastor.
So and I just thought that I said, and I answered. I said, it's because you become like what you worship. That's what. Say, that sounds good. So I mean, the questions are, on different levels.
And even in terms of making sure when you have a child that is driven, yet you do not want them to measure their worth by performance.
Correct.
I remember I was having a conversation with one of the children, and she was like, "This is my grades. Because of you people." I said, you are not having your grades because of me. Your grades is for yourself. Your worth doesn't change because you are doing well or whatever. However, this is because of the future you want for yourself. So it is you. Yes, we're happy when you have good grades, and of course, our money is not wasted. And all. However, it is for you.
And one of the things we always say and we work together on is that sometimes when you see a child is doing well, I mean, very well, you neglect some other aspects of their lives.
Because they're doing well academically.
And for us, that is not an issue for us.
Yes.
We're always
because you want to raise the whole child, you know.
So you want a child, yes, doing academically. What about her relationships? You know, how is that child working out her relationship?
What about spiritually?
What about spiritually? So for us, it's important.
Emotionally, everywhere.
A child may not be doing as well academically, but maybe adjusted well emotionally, in relationship wise,
and in so many other ways. So you know that, okay, we need to work on this academics, but then these other parts are. So a child that's doing, the danger again, as you said, is that a child that is doing academically well, you will tend to leave all those other things that are not measurable, so to speak. And that's the danger. And we found out that sometimes you can't even afford to do that. In fact, that child that seems to be low maintenance is the child that you need to really watch for, because you don't know what's happening under. And that's a journey for us as parents, that where we just need to be intentional to pray for the child, for each child, and not ignore the one that is doing well, even when you are praying. And
for me, one of the things you have done very well is, you know, being able to get under the mind of a child, of some of our children.
I think that I'm very lucky, or that very blessed, that I was able to start my business early, because that made me own my time. And you know, if we talk about that, you remember that. So after we had Dumomi, and I was still working in banking, and we're like, this banking, and both of us will come home late, remember? And I was pregnant, and it just couldn't continue like that. And you said to me, and you always say you don't remember, that why don't you try out that business you've been thinking about? If it doesn't work out, you can always go back. But if it works out, you will know you did it. But if you never try, you would always wonder, what if I had tried that cornucopia business? You know? So owning my time early was very instrumental in the quality of relationships that the relationship that we both have with the kids, really. I remember when our daughter went to school, left home basically to go to school, and she was like, guys, thank you for do you remember? I said, thank you for how you brought me up, because there's so many children in that school that I don't even know who they are. Everything, they're just basically being moved. She didn't say by every wind of doctrine, but basically they could be easily swayed.
There's something you always say, that it's important that you bring up children to have a strong
sense of self,
and strong sense of identity. And for us, one of the things which I think you are the one who pushed a lot is that the children are comfortable to speak to us. I remember when, was it Dumomi, who, when he was 7, he at the dining table, you were in the living room
with Betty,
yes, your friend, and he says, "Mommy, what is sex?" And your friend just took off. You know,
yes, he was eating jollof rice. I'll never forget.
And your friend just
I
took
said,
off. I
said, "Do you mean sex
he said,
as in gender?" Because you don't want to go and answer the question the child is not asking. So do you mean sex as in gender, or? He said, no, that one where they are kissing each other, I said, oh. So I just gave an age-appropriate response.
Yeah.
Because I was ready.
Yeah,
I think that, sorry.
No, I remember when our last born too asked about sex. He said, is it the American sex? Oh, I said, which one is the American one? Yeah.
Yes, you know. So yes, we've had those episodes. And I think for me, the reason I was so, when I have amazing parents, or had, well, my mom is alive, dad isn't. But my parents, our generation, we didn't talk about things like that.
Correct.
And there were certain things I was like, okay, I didn't get these things in my childhood. I would want them with my children. So early on, I knew that, okay, these are certain things I want in my relationship with my children. These are certain things I want to build in my children. And having a child that forced us to even now be intentional or lose would I say, a catalyst or something that just helped to make us ensure those things are put in place.
Now you touched on something that I think is very important, and that's when you started your business. Because you started your business, it gave you time to at least talk to the children. You pick the children up
from school every
day. You talk to them back from school. You knew what they were saying. I mean, and when I look at our children today, there's almost, at least all of them, almost anything they can tell us. So I like a girl. I like this guy.
I'm thinking of this.
I'm thinking of that. I mean,
we're still on the journey, and I won't say we're there. We are definitely not there yet. We're not like super parents and all that. I must thank you as well, because if you didn't, first of all, support me, if I didn't feel comfortable enough to say, or secure enough in our relationship to say, oh, I can start a business. Because as I said, when Dumami was really young, like maybe 1.5, that was when I started to think, this banking is not working, remember? And I started, not banking, and I started to think, what can I do? And I started exploring. And I finally found jewelry making and all that. And I started thinking to myself, okay, maybe do this. But I was like, how do I leave banking to go and do that? Mm-hmm. And you said, and that was when you gave me that advice, and you said, you should try it out. If it doesn't work out, you can go back. But if you never try it out, you would always wonder. And all that. And I'm really grateful to you for that. And that's one thing I'm grateful, that advice and just as support. And secondly, I'm grateful that when I stopped working, you didn't diminish my value because I no longer was bringing in money. Because, of course, I was now starting this business. I was now, maybe in a whole month, we'll sell 50,000 or 20,000 or something.
About? You were not even selling, really selling.
And I was pregnant. Remember, I was pregnant with our daughter when I resigned from work. So everybody thought, oh, she's just going to, it was during the consolidation of banks in 2005. And everybody thought, oh, she's going home to sleep. So I made sure that I did my first exhibition. And I had my baby 2 weeks after the first exhibition, just to prove a point, And I was intentional that, okay, I'm going to build this thing. And I used some of my skills from banking, like, from marketing, from customer service, retail banking. And those skills were helpful to help me start my business. But point about it is that you didn't weaponize my brokenness, because I didn't have money. Because I wasn't earning a regular income. And it now became our money. And there was at that time.
Well, it's always been our money. Because I remember when we
both
were
worked.
Working, what used to happen was that you
withdraw money from the bank. Me too, there was no ATM, there was nothing.
So I'll write a check, withdraw money from the bank.
Same thing.
The drawer next to me. She'll put her own money next to your own money.
In the same drawer.
Next to her.
And we'll spend from there.
It's almost finished. We'll put it there. I mean, there was really.
And we saved together, kind of.
We saved together. Now I remember.
Although we've never had a joint account,
Yeah. So
because I know people talk about this joint account matter. I'm like, whatever works for you, I beg.
Yeah, you see, I tell people that you can have joint accounts and your heart is
not joints. Exactly.
And the thing is that joint account is a creation of the banking industry in 1924, something like that. Maybe there was no joint. So it's just a product. What's important is what's in our
alignment.
Alignment. And we spent that money. I remember you resigned in
end of November 2005.
And in April, I told you, I said, Bimbo,
money is finishing.
Money is finishing very early in this house. He says, Kunle,
Have you forgotten that I don't work again?
I said, oh, that, and I think that singular discussion helped us to adjust very quickly. Because for me, we now has to say, and you told me something then, that it means that I can't carry the bags my friends are carrying. I can't
because I can't do certain things.
Yeah.
Because I was building a business.
Because you were building a business at that time. And I must say that it was really challenging. I remember there are days in those days where we were
scrimping, basically.
Scrimping.
We were, just because
things going and all that. I remember some guy who had owed me 3,000.
Okay.
He now sent it back to me. That 3,000 looked like 100,000. There's money today. But at least, I mean, we were cutting our coats according to our size. And it was just a challenging period for us that time.
Especially during those early days before my business even took off.
Yeah, because at that time, one of the things we looked at was, this is our money. And one of the things I thought about at that time was that, see, and even up until today, is when you look at money, you can't use money to determine is it leadership in the home, because and I always thank you for some of the things you do. For instance, I don't know how to get a lesson teacher. You know how to do so. I don't know how the food just comes on the table. There's so many things you do to keep, the home good and all that. And if I was supposed to put a monetary value on
all those
things, it will. I can't afford you.
You can't.
I can't afford it. So it means that you were contributing in
another way
areas in the family, and and for me, anytime you said you needed something, it's not what you call it, and you're not there to. You understand both our conditions, what the issues were at that time, and say, well, this thing, we don't need it now. He helped our budgeting a bit more.
It helped us be disciplined.
Disciplined with money.
And of course, as my business now grew, things eased out. I used to
ask you, sometimes when you pay for something during the month, then I said, business was good this month. I was like, business was good this month. You made some sales this month. And in those days, I remember we would set a target for you in the business. I say, Bimbo, if you make 50,000 naira,
can you imagine?
This month, we'll make 50,000 naira this month. We'll celebrate, and we would kind of celebrate. Then we moved it to the day you make 250,000. It looked like
1 million.
You make 500. You make 1 million. And we've seen that business go on. And for me, one of the things that was in those days, and for us that we needed to work together, I was introducing customers.
Oh, yes. The fact that you were also one of my destiny helpers. And I remember how Kunle would just tell, oh, do you know my wife? Oh, she makes beautiful jewelry. She has a business called Cornucopia. And a lot of customers, okay, so my husband has a lot of female friends. So Kunle has a lot of female friends. And that's another topic for another day. But I think we'll talk about it, but how you just use your network to help me. My first customers were my colleagues, and then some of them were like friends, your friends, who, and it grew from there. And talking about this female friend matter, and, because I know that sometimes women struggle with their husbands having female friends, but for good reason. You can't blame. But one of the things I would say that you've done very well is to make those friends my friends. And sometimes when I'm talking to one of these friends, Kalolore, who is the owner of the friend? Who is the owner of the friend? So with those friends, I never felt like, who is this person? Because that person became our friend. It wasn't any longer just your friend and some fencing going on. And also, I was always comfortable with that.
I think for us, it's that issue of open communication is always very important. how you're feeling about issues, what you don't like, what you like. We don't want to keep things.
Yes.
What do you call it?
Because again, if I don't tell you what I don't like, or you don't tell me what you don't like, how would I know?
And that I always tell this story, and I remember when we just first got married, and this is just about opening. When we first got married, a few months after we got married, I was at work one day, and I learned a big lesson. I was talking to this girl I just met at work.
Maybe she came to consult or something.
And I spoke so much to her. Then I started kind of
liking
her, and everything. She said, hey, this guy, you are married. What's happening? I was praying. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I was like, what's happening here? So I was supposed to pick you up from church that day. It was a Wednesday. So when I picked you up from church, hey, Kule, I said, stop. You remember? I said, stop.
I remember.
You remember?
I met a girl today.
I said, I met a girl today that I just was liking. And you said, hey. And immediately I said that feeling just disappeared. And I learned immediately, two things. Don't over-talk. Don't over-engage. Any woman that is not your wife. Then secondly, sin thrives in secrecy, and because I brought it out, and I think
Kule, the reason you're also able to bring it out was because you trusted I would not, you were talking to, and then turn it into something else. What just happened was that I just took it as, oh, really? That happened? Oh, so, and then I got you to tell, we talked about it, and once we talked about it, it fizzled out, really. So I think also being in communication, just understanding that you are on the same team, right? Because if you hadn't been comfortable enough to tell me, then we may have led to maybe something else, or you just agonize. Even if it didn't lead to anything, you just agonize in secret, and you didn't need that.
So going back to
what just occurred to me, that some of these things were the foundation, because this happened a few months after we got married. So some of these things we were building foundation, for how our marriage was going to look, by how we responded to situations, how we reacted in certain things, and
some of these principles you talk about, I also remember, and it's not always going to be the way you want it all the time. I remember when we first got married, I told you about the need that if you are upset about something, make sure you tell me. I say, Kunle, I'm upset about this, then we'll sort it out. But you cannot always expect that to happen.
Because you're not robots now.
Yeah, you're not robots.
And I think we had a few flare-ups when we first got married. Where I was just like, and remember when you said you don't like to talk? When in the mornings, when we got married, like you like things to be quiet, and me, I would chatter, and you just would get irritated. But then you now learned that, when you are married, you are not alone again.
Yeah.
So you have to be flexible.
I'm connecting
with the heavenly waves.
I'm connecting at that time, and but once we understood that, I think some of those compromises we started to make for each other, and in marriage, those compromises will continue because we are both different.
We are two individuals.
You are two individuals, various cultures, various mindsets, and all that. And for me, one of the things I've found out is that some things will never change. Some things may never change, and if they never change, how are they material to our marriage? Can they break our marriage and all that? An example is this: we both like to read, and Bimbo,
I always leave books on the table.
The bed, not
on
the
the
table.
bed, rather.
On the bed. You just have books on the bed. Please, can you shift the bed? Initially it was like, move these books now. But really, when I look at it these days, whether you move it, whether you don't move it, it doesn't really affect what you... But you also tell me that sometimes when you call me, I don't answer. I'm like...
Yes, when someone is talking to you, I'll be like, answer! As in, because... I don't even know why you do that thing. Why?
I'm reflecting. So I've told you, but you've told me later on, and I guess I told you that I'm thinking about it.
Like daddy.
Yeah, like my dad. Yeah, that I'm thinking about it. In fact, my mom complains. I say, somebody will be talking to you. You'll just be looking and talking, So I'm thinking about it, like I'm thinking about it. I'm saying.
But then I think what I now realized was I will now ask you that, is this a good time to talk about this matter?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jogging back to that issue of finance, of finances, it was a difficult period for us. Savings were quite what you call it. But for me, I made the decision that I will never ever put you in harm's way or be upset
or even define my worth because I wasn't bringing X amount like I was before.
Yeah.
And what you said about trying to quantify the value that I bring in other ways and all that. And when I was talking about how our daughter now says, thank you for how you brought us up. And having a strong sense of how I know who I am. Someone can't. Those. I'm just grateful that I got to spend time with my kids, pick them up, and all that. But I also understand that you helped that to make that happen, and really that I'm also grateful that I had an idea to think, you can try this and all.
So I think all in all, how we communicated, continue to communicate with each other, it's important. I remember before we got married and a little after we got married, I was such an opinionated.
Hey, even though you are easygoing generally, I think that you have a strong personality. I don't know if I've ever told you. I think you do have a very strong personality. And it would show up in how opinionated you were about something, and you would not let anybody else say something about it. And you used to be quite inflexible. But I think over time, you've really, worked on it. And but I find that now, there's certain things you're still, you would be inflexible about, where you thought this is non-negotiable, especially maybe with the children. And I always appreciate it a lot when you're like, you cannot get away with this. This is not acceptable,
Yeah, so I think for us in communicating, maybe when we first got married, that being opinionated about an issue was a major...
And because you always felt you were right about...
Yes, because I always felt I was right about an issue. I had research, I had data, I had this. But my point is, marriage is not like that for me. I mean, give people some...
And then what I always say, I'm an adult person, you're an adult person, so... We're two individuals. So, hello.
You are not my daughter.
I'm not exactly. So,
and you are not my mother.
And I'm exactly.
Mother,
yeah. So it's so important that we deal with each other as husband and wife, and not as you feeling that you must. And in the end, if you are not opinionated, or if someone goes on and does something, sometimes they will just have to bear the consequences of whatever it is, and that's just part of it. If it's nothing major, because then, of course, I believe the husband is like a covering. And sometimes when you say to me, Bimbo, do this thing, and I don't do it, I've seen how my hands will get burnt. So I've learned how to also listen.
Yeah, and also listen to you too. And because for me, listening to you, there are things that...
Perspective. I give you perspective, and I know.
Yeah. Perspectives that you give me, and I think those things are so important. One of the things I've come to realize in those issues where there could be arguments and all that is that I think over time 80% of what a lot of people would argue about are non-issues, and I mean because they are non-issues, just let them go. The 20% you can decide to be opinionated on it. Like you said, don't let it go. And just that openness. I remember there was a day, anytime I come back home from work, one of the things I normally do first, I go to the kitchen, I wash my hands and all that. And she wants to
I'm trying to remember. Do you want me similar?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was in the early years of our marriage as well. And you would wash your hand, you washed your hand and you just, and I was so annoyed. And the water splashed all over me. And I actually thought, because you are a very playful person, I thought it was one of your pranks. So I was like, what kind of silly prank is this? And maybe I was even in a good mood. And I was just like, and I was so angry. It was really irritating. And I decided to be quiet about it. But after some time, I tell him now. And when I told you, you didn't know that you had done that. And can you imagine, if I didn't tell you, how I would just have been stewing and been angry for nothing. And you would just have been wondering, what happened? What did I do? So many times, I think the lesson in that is that if you're unhappy about something, make sure you speak up and speak out about it.
For me, it's always so important. And these things are hard. They're sometimes very hard discussions that we've had in the past. I mean, on various issues, it's a hard discussion. We have to have that discussion. Doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yes, and I know when we have those hard discussions, sometimes I get defensive.
Yeah.
And because sometimes it's the hardest when the person closest to you is the one telling you that thing. You can take it. Remember when you used to tell me that, but that thing that person told you and you went to do. But I've been telling you that thing for months, especially maybe in relation to my business.
Yeah.
But I've been telling you that thing since. But sometimes, you get, I know I used to get really, really defensive when you would maybe either correct me or even advise me on something. And I don't know, I would take it personally, it would irritate me, and I'll be like, please leave me and all. But I would now someone else would now say it, and I would take the same advice and you'd be like, Auntie, Shebi, I told you that 1 year ago. Or maybe I come on board with something and you're like, but we've been talking about this since. But I also find that sometimes the time has just come. Maybe you're just ready to receive that thought or that advice and all that. And I am learning not to be as defensive or to take things personally.
So I guess like you said at the beginning, it's a journey. Are we at the end of the journey?
We're not at the end, though. We're not even in the middle.
I think for me, it's been a lovely journey, a beautiful journey. Yes, like they say, there are hills and troughs and all that, but one of the things you want to do is to ensure that you're smoothing it out. And doing that life with you on a daily basis has just made it extremely pleasant. I made a goal a number of years ago, many years ago, that at least I'll make you laugh
every day,
at least once a day. And I think that goal for me continues to be achieved because when I see you smile, it makes me smile, it makes me happy, it makes me joyful. You're giving, we have lovely children together, and I tell you all the time, man, I really love our children. I tell you all the time, I really love you. Despite I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. I mean, but we keep working on these things, and I can tell you, 23 years is not. It's not.
We're just starting.
It's just a joke. It's just starting. So,
and for me, one of the things I think that has been, should I say helped us, is also the realization of continually investing in our relationship. Yes, we're parents together. I think we parent our children together, but we also have been intentional to grow our friendship together because we gist all the time. We hang out. There's always something to tell you and something for you to tell me.
Gossip partner.
Because the truth is, the children will go. We are counting down to empty nests.
Yeah.
you know, we're counting down to empty nest. But we're not afraid because we're looking forward to it because it's like, oh God, a new season of just doing things together without thinking, he's at home, can we, you know? So, or I mean, maybe the child is at home, the last born is at home and all that. So, and I'm grateful that I ended up with someone who was on the same wavelength with me and with who I could grow together and who is very secure in himself and who also encourages me to be, you know, Kunle, you are my greatest cheerleader. You know how we say it, that you're my greatest cheerleader. You know they put that tissue there. Now I feel like maybe I want to need that tissue, but I'll hold myself. Anyway, so in building Cornucopia, you've been just amazing, even in helping me to grow, to encourage me to push, you've never been intimidated, you've just always and you've never also discounted the importance of my business or how big. You always tell me, Bimbo, you can't imagine how big I see your business becoming or the potential it has. Even, you know, we're doing really well now, and I think it's because I continue to grow as a person because you've helped me to grow as a person. And, you know, you're my guy. You know, I always say that.
Who's your guy?
So, and it was Father's Day the other time, and I said, thanks for always showing up. And with the kids, even as yesterday when we were having that conversation, you know, because of one of the kids that needed an intervention, and you didn't just say, handle it, you know. We're actually checking things out together, and we're like, okay, should we do it this way? Who should we get for this thing? And we're basically, you are the one that said, oh, call this person, do this thing. We're doing life and every part of it together. And it's just because you're just so amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So,
and you're amazing yourself too. And
I know.
The point is, and one of the things for us is you never leave the other person behind. You know, I see how we are growing together. If I'm reading a book, you are reading the book. And you know, a quick story is that I remember when we first got married, the kind of books you like to read. You like to read novels and all that. And I would say, why don't you read? She say, leave me alone. This is a book I like to read. And I remember I would read a book, I'll show you a paragraph, read it, and say, it's nice. You should read this page, it's nice. Then today now, you're even reading more than me.
I read more than you.
And you're reading more than me.
One of the things I've found to be very important is that you're on the same team with your spouse. So Kunle and I are on the same team. We're not on opposing teams. So it's important that as we do the journey of marriage, that we continue to remember that, because it's very easy when there are issues to think that you are on opposing teams, you know, and it's a competition, or, you know, you have to win against the other person. But when we do realize that we're on one team, and then it becomes easier to do life together, and it helps even the decisions we make. And another thing is that we're creating a culture for our children, and we're modeling something for them. And by working at our marriage, we're actually empowering them, because then they have one less baggage, basically, to carry around. When they see how well we built marriage, they see it as something to aspire to. And it also just helps them to believe that, you know what, I can find someone good to do life with, and it's possible to do life like that. And of course, one thing, don't leave each other behind. Continue to grow together, because this is the person you're with.
Adjusting in marriage could be very challenging, because you're getting married to somebody who is different from you, different backgrounds and all that. One thing that I would advise is the requirement for patience. love is patient and kind. When you're patient with the other person, they can express themselves. As husbands and wives, ensure that you give the other person the latitude to express themselves. Don't ever get to a point that why are you thinking like that? No, they can think like that, but when you sit down together, you can work things together. So be patient with each other. As you're patient with each other, you would start to they start to unveil their hearts to you, and if they unveil their hearts to you, then you can deal with issues. But if you are not patient and they keep things inside, you don't really know what you're dealing with. And as you are patient with each other, I'm sure that you can both work things out together. No matter how difficult it is today, it can work, and I'm sure it can work. Just give it the time, the required effort, and be intentional about it. You would enjoy your marriage. See, marriage can be enjoyed, and if you are intentional about it, you will enjoy it.